Right, today we're going to talk about some of the worst mountain bike products ever. We're going to be going back through the history to get some retro, some modern things that you could have wasted your money on.
May well have. This is very fun, and I feel like I'm guilty of wasting some time, at least, on some of these things.
Let's start off with a retro one that I had. So Rockshox, do you remember them making disc brakes?
I don't. I didn't know that. I literally just learned it today.
SRAM, of course, they're all part of the same thing. Back in the day they weren't, Rockshox were separate, and they did make some really good looking, they were like kind of air-cooled little motors, you know, but gold, but they were terrible. They were cable pull disc brakes.
There's the problem.
And the problem was they had a floating caliper and only one piston pushed. So you effectively had one piston that was cable actuated and pushed against this thing, and because of the floating caliper, it squeezed together, but with the force of an anemic weasel. And they did not work. I had a GT Lobo. I'm not going to get into it. People love that bike. It's a retro bike. It was a terrible bike, and it had those terrible brakes on it.
Controversial.
And I rode them once, and they just did not work. They were unsuitable.
I feel like we could sum this up also as just cable disc brakes. Bad. Generally all bad.
Wow, yeah. Actually, I looked this up for this video, and actually not many bikes these days come with them anymore, because hydraulic disc brakes you can get at the very lowest end now. Shimano makes some brilliant ones as well. They're cheap as chips. You don't really get cable discs anymore.
Yeah, and it's incredible because the difference between a cable disc brake and a hydraulic disc brake is worlds apart. And almost all hydraulic disc brakes these days are pretty flipping good.
They are.
Yeah. So there you go. This is the first one. What about this then? Proprietary shocks on bikes. I disagree with one of these wholeheartedly. But,
well, of course you would.
But you go on, state your case.
Because we had to talk, you know, standards is obviously going to come up. Standards of changing things on the bikes, that is annoying. But this one thing, particularly, someone makes a one-off shock that only fits that bike. Generally, I think it's a bad idea because you're kind of all the R&D that's gone into this single shock that hasn't changed over the, not want to say millennia.
Yeah.
All the years you've had cars, motorbikes, you know, an eye-to-eye shock that works like this, that just works. And then somebody says, oh, I've got a better idea.
The one that works like that.
I want to make this thing that pulls or it pushes or it does. It's got chambers that change the travel.
And then it breaks and then you want to try and fix it. And they don't have any parts.
Or you buy a bike cheap that's 10 years old and it's got one of these and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. But you have mentioned in your little script.
Cannondale.
No.
Trek.
No. Just tell me which shock you're talking about. Because if you're talking about the lefty, I will slap you on your right side. Neil, the lefty is a kind of proprietary shock.
It is.
But it's great.
Put two of them together, we might have a different story.
That's really good. Has anyone ever done that? I don't suppose you could.
No,
Two lefties. Anyway, proprietary, bad idea. What about super extreme short stems?
So we had these back in the day. Azonic made this 0mm stem that went on top of your steerer tube. So you had to cut your steerer tube down really short and then it went on. I tried it, I borrowed my mates. It didn't work because back in the day you didn't have the reach long enough because you just made your bike really short then. They were already small. So Mondraker much more recently decided with their forward geometry to make a 10mm stem. So they put all the length in the front end of the bike and not in the stem to make it a much more direct motocross bike.
Argument for them nowadays? I mean, like, it would have been a bad idea back then and you've wasted your money, but these days, you could, bikes are longer, you could potentially want to bring the bars back towards you.
I feel like even for those bikes, for a downhill bike, for a long, more aggressive thing, I think 30mm is kind of the right area. You just get a really twitchy feel, in my opinion. I think anything under 30mm, you're getting into a pretty wild situation.
Yeah, have you ever done the extreme and ridden a cross-country bike with a super long stem and you've kind of got this steering?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
how does that ever work?
So scary. It's like driving a bus. Very, very frightening. I've got one for you. This one, it's controversial because a lot of people did well using the product because they were sponsored by them.
Well, that's the cynic in you say they're only using them.
I feel like most of us, me being one of them, only used Gripshift because we were given it and it didn't work.
I never got on with it. I tried it on different bikes. I've even tried the lockouts. And the way I want to ride a bike, it means I twist them by mistake.
Well, I used to twist them by mistake. I interestingly used to have a grip shift on both sides, but I only had 6 gears and it was on the right hand side. The other one was just there to make the colours match. I didn't even have a cable in it. But one thing that was a nightmare with it is if you got your hands a little bit wet or it got muddy, it just would slip.
Or then you'd have to buy the muddy grip upgrade.
It was just a crap idea, and often it's in the gear changing area where really crap ideas come in, because it's a big problem to try and solve, and people put a lot of engineering ideas into that, and Gripshift is one of those where it got a lot further than it should.
Well, on the gear changing thing, I'm definitely going to Shimano dual control levers. You can't have a list like this without these being on there.
Yeah.
So you had a brake lever that not only stopped you, it also changed your gears. So you had like a thumb shifter, but you also had the levers that would push and pull.
But then they turned flappy.
Flop around. They did not stay for. I mean, obviously they were designed for cross country, but they did not stay around.
Yeah, that's a good point. The gears scenario the shifter scenario can create some problems. But I guess I should say thanks to Gripshift for the support back in the day. Elastomer anything. Because I was in the era riding downhill of elastomer suspension.
Well, yeah, that's
when people just went, hey, should we make the bikes have sort of suspension, and used elastomers, and it was crap.
However,
bad.
You know what? I ran this list past Andrew Dodd, and he said that actually some modern suspension forks use them just as like a bottom out bumper. So on your rear shock, you've that bottom out bumper.
Yeah, but that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As a bottom out, stopper, but not the suspension itself.
True.
Terrible feeling suspension, and elastomers, I think, were a waste of money.
Truvativ Hammerschmidt. Remember these?
Oh, hang on a second. This is a really great product.
Well,
what are you talking about?
It did not really well. I think it's a great idea. The concept was good, but the thing, it was like a chain set that had basically two rings, but it wasn't two rings. It was like a system in
It was a two-speed orbital geared.
That was it.
Front chain ring. And it was a genius idea. It really did work. And I thought, because I was someone, like I said earlier, that only had 6 gears on the back, and the thought of being able to change those 6 gears into 12 with this great crank that looked kind of cool. But I could never persuade them to give me one because they were worried I was going to break it.
Well, that was the problem. They broke and they had loads of drag, and that's why there never was a Mark II Hammerschmidt.
Yeah, shame, but I loved the idea, and I really wanted one. I did really want one. Never got it.
Suspension stems.
Yay!
Do you know what? The gravel crew have just discovered suspension stems.
They've just adopted it.
And in my eyes, that means it was terrible in the first place. So there's a lot of things they are adopting that was bad mountain bike technology.
Could it work on gravel riding though? It is different.
It probably would. A Specialized do a bike. Is it their Roubaix bike that has like a kind of the same idea as a bit of compliance?
A lot of the gravel bikes are adopting the suspension seat post, aren't they?
Yes, but on a mountain bike, do you know the things where you control the bike? Your handlebars. Do you want them flopping around in the air when you're not exactly sure where they are?
Neil, I'm with you. I do not want a suspension stem. It's a terrible idea. Yeah. It's basically you've deliberately broken your stem and you're now holding it together with some sponge. It's a bad idea. But on gravel, don't know. We'll have to let you, if you're going to go and waste some money. Tell us.
Well, there's no absolutely zero technical riding when it comes to gravel. You're just blatting along something bumpy, so you might as well. Don't matter, does it?
Gravel bike shade right there.
Bar ends, Martin. Worst mountain bike products ever?
I don't know, because back in the day, they really did define the look of a mountain bike a little bit, early on.
I had some Monza bar ends.
So it's hard, because they look so dated now.
Do.
So it's really easy to say they're a waste of money, but were they? I mean, Tinker Juarez used bar ends.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, he's good. So I don't know.
That's what I'm telling you.
I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to say, but yeah, maybe if you're buying them now, you might be wasting some money. I've got one for you, Neil.
Yeah.
It wasn't a successful product as such, and I want to defend it, but I guess you could argue that cheese grips back in the day, for one day that they were available, were a waste of money.
Cheese grips?
Cheese grips. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I invented the idea. Basically, you're out on a big long ride, you need some food, you've ridden with some really spongy grips, they're made of cheese, and you could eat them when you've run out of nutrition.
Didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah, apparently the one downfall to them is that after a while they started to smell. Yeah, Blake, I'll let Blake give you a demo of what happens when you find them.
Yeah, cheese grips. Unbelievable.
Great idea.
Finally, Martin, one-piece bar and stems. You've seen these very expensive new cross-country bikes.
Very expensive.
Coming with carbon fibre bar and stem.
Yeah. One thing I don't like about them is the droop.
Well,
some of them droop.
I've tried kind of enduro versions. Scott make them actually, and they are. My problem is they could be a waste of money. They might not be, but if they're not your chosen sort of, sweep and rise, then you can't just change the bar, you can't just change the stem. You've got this very expensive, very lightweight, high-end thing that you go like, oh, what am I going to use that for?
Yeah, I mean, they actually use these in trials on the 20-inch trials bikes, and the stem on a 20-inch trials bike is like 170, so huge. So the reach on this stem to a one-piece bar and stem combo is massive. And the leverage they put through it,
but it's crazy.
They work. It's amazing. You wouldn't think it could take it, but it really can.
Arguably, maybe shouldn't be on this list, but they could be a big waste of money if it's not.
They could be if it's the wrong length for you. It really has been. So that's interesting. That's a good one.
Anyway, get involved in the comments. We must have missed something that you've bought and you've used it and you said this is rubbish.
It's total crap. We want to know about it in the comments down below.
Well, everyone wants to know because they don't want to waste their money either. So let us know. Comments down below.
Absolutely. Give us a like and ring the old bell to get this mountain bike video out to more riders. And until next time, say goodbye.